We are moving on to table number 2. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the eraser and I'm going to start over with the checklist. And then I'll read step 1. Step 1 says, label X and Y in your table. So I'm going to put a little check mark there. And then I'll go back over here to number 2. I'm going to first press this question details, click that so that it will go downwards and make this larger. And then I'm going to grab the typing tool and I'm going to label the top row is X and then the bottom row is Y. Notice that in this example, I have a horizontal table for you. We need to practice where X and Y goes in both types of tables. So these are all X values. All of those are X values. And then all of these in the bottom row are the Y values. So I'll just label all of those. Then I'll go back to my checklist. I'm going to click the question details downwards. All right, step 2 says choose a coordinate. So now I go over here, I'll choose scribble, and you cannot pick 0, 0 to find the unit rate. You can't use that to find the unit rate. So let me pick a different one. 11 38.5 or 3 10/2. This is a smaller number. 3 is smaller than 11, 10.5 is smaller than 38.5. So I'm thinking this might be easier. And since it doesn't matter which one I choose because I'll get the same answer because k is constant, I'm going to use this point. So I'll record that down here. 3 is the X, 10.5 is the Y. Now that I've selected my point, I need to label the coordinate. So I go back over here and I'm going to type for this one. Actually, I need to remember to add my parentheses. Whoops. Now I can type. 3 is X, just take a look back and check that. 10.5 I believe is Y, I'll look back and check that. And then X, all right, I need to fall back to the beginning, is labeled minutes. So 3 represents the minutes, 3 minutes. And then I follow this 10.5 all the way back to the beginning and it says, reads laps. So 10.5 laps in 3 minutes. So I've labeled this coordinate. I go back over here to step 4, fill in the unit rate formula. All right, it's time to find the unit rate. So I'm going to grab the scribble tool. I'm going to draw an equal sign, a fraction bar. I'm going to write the word per for the fraction bar. I'll grab a different color. And we're finding Y first. So I go over here. Y is 10.5 laps. So I'm going to type 10.5 laps. I think it'd actually be easier with the 10.5 if I just write it instead of typing. 10.5 laps. All right, then I choose a different color. And now I'm finding the X value. And the X value is 3. So I'm going to write 3 minutes. And I actually really will type this. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So 10.5 laps per 3 minutes, every 3 minutes. So that's not a unit rate yet. To find the unit rate, we actually have to divide. So I'm going to take this down here and I'm going to copy 10 1/2 and 3. This is a complex fraction because it is a fraction that contains a fraction. The first step with a complex fraction is to make sure both the numerator and the denominator are in fractional form. So I'm going to change 3 to 3 over 1. You change an integer to a fraction by placing it over the number 1. And then I need to change 10.5 to a fraction as well, an improper fraction. So 10 times 2 gives me 20. And then I need to add 1 to that 20. And I get 21. That's the numerator. Then the denominator stays the same. So the denominator should still be a 2. And now I have 2 fractions. Once you have 2 fractions, the next step is to trade out this fraction bar division symbol for just a regular division symbol. And then you need to ensure that you put the numerator fraction first. So 21/2 goes first. Then you place the denominator fraction second. Next, we're ready for the keep change reciprocal method, or keep change flip. Keep this fraction. That means you do not change it. You don't flip it. You leave it alone. These two will be changed. So the division changes to multiplication, and we have to write the reciprocal. Instead of 3 over 1, we write 1 over 3, which is the reciprocal of 3. And then finally, we're ready to multiply across. So 21 times 1 is 21, and 3 times 2 is 6. And then I can reduce after that. 21 and 6 are both divisible by 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I just found my unit rate to be 7 halves. So I'm going to write it in up here. 7 halves, and it's L for laps, P for per, and M for minutes. So 7 halves laps per minute. If you prefer, you could have also written this as a decimal. So 3.5 laps per minute. That's the same thing as 7 halves. And then I'll come down here to the equation part. And for the equation, we're going to, I should grab a different color. We're going to just cross out K, and we're going to replace it with a unit rate. So instead of K, we replace K with the 7 halves. And then the X you leave alone, the Y you leave alone, the equal sign you leave alone. You could also, if you prefer, instead of writing Y equals 7 halves X, you could write Y equals 3.5 X. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention is you could have also, instead of multiplying and then reducing, if you prefer, the other method you can use is you can reduce diagonally first and then multiply across. And I'm going to show you that you'll get the same thing. Look at 3 and 21. They're both divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 21 divided by 3 is 7. So then if I would have reduced first and then multiplied across, look at what would happen. I would multiply 7 by 1, and we would get 7. And then we would multiply 2 by 1, and we would get 2. So I want to make sure I reminded you that you can either multiply first and then reduce, or you can reduce diagonally and then multiply across second.